Oh, hey there. Middle children of history, it's me, Dr. Jordan Brady, and since I already broke the third rule of Fight Club, we might as well keep going and break the first two. You're watching Your Brain on Crack, the show where I drink delicious Starbucks throughout, and the only show on crack that's a little desperate. Yum! Today I diagnose. Once the dust, credit card companies, and Jared Leto's dislodged teeth settle at the conclusion of Fight Club, America's most pressing concern will be figuring out whether the narrator was named Tyler Durden or if he was intended to have any name at all.
I am Jax Colon.
Fight Club never tells us what's on the narrator's driver's license, but fortunately for you, I do know what's written there. And it's not just that he's an organ donor.
These guys are gonna take your balls.
The narrator has a solid Christian name, Ralphie Parker. That's right. So we all suspected the adorable, bespectacled child from A Christmas Story one day beats the lead singer of 30 Seconds to Mars until on its face is a map of the world. And how do I know this? The protagonists of both A Christmas Story and its sequel, Fight Club, love narrating their life stories. The only problem is neither of them know what the hell they're talking about.
Fragile. It must be Italian.
It's safe to wonder if a single thing the narrator says is true. I mean, he creates a separate identity he himself is entirely unaware of and blames most of his actions on the fictional Tyler Durden. He remembers virtually nothing of his relationship with Marla Singer, and he's apparently forgotten acquiring the skill sets necessary to craft bombs out of soap and soap out of nasty-ass human ass fat. Remember, Fight Club is set in a time before Google and Tinder when making bombs and love took a little extra effort. The narrator even schemes an incredibly complicated operation to eliminate all credit card debt without remembering a single detail. That's Jason Bourne level amnesia, and there's no reason to trust any aspect of his story. Just like we should never trust any Jason Bourne movie after Ultimatum.
Do you know what a sin eater is? Well, that's what we are. We are the sin eaters.
Similarly, the story related by Sweet Sweet Ralphie is riddled with more anachronisms than America's developmental history in your average Civilization 3 campaign. A Christmas Story appears to be set in 1940, though it's narrated by an older, wiser Ralphie from the 1980s. Mr. Parker's car registration is dated 1940, Ralphie's decoder pin is the 1940 Speedomatic, and Mrs. Parker owns a stack of Look magazines from the late 1930s. But everything else in Ralphie's story evidently fell through some sort of time vortex. Ralphie's three-hinge glasses weren't invented until the 1980s, Scott's braces didn't exist before the 1970s, Mr. Parker's type of bowling ball wasn't possible before the 1960s, and racial integration in Indiana classrooms wasn't legalized until 1949. Did Ralphie frequently imagine a utopic future with expanded racial equality and customizable bowling ball color choices? Or is he struggling to remember what his childhood was like because he's only recounting what he thinks 1940 was like? Ralphie's inability to accurately recollect era-specific details from his childhood casts doubt on other aspects of his story too. More on this in a little bit.
It was? Yes. Yes. So poisoning.
A penchant for violence is central to the narrator's character. Not only does he establish a boys-only thumping club, he's prone to punching himself in the face. He bashes in some dude's head to destroy something beautiful and threatens to remove another man's genitals with less remorse than me settling on a Starbucks order because they have so many tasty options. The narrator builds IEDs, shoots himself in the head, and you get it. He's violent.
Oh. Motherfucker. You hit me in the ear.
But remember when the narrator attacked Jared Leto until whether he lived was up in the air? Well, that's eerily similar to how Ralphie brutalizes Scott.
Holy smoke!
Lest you think that Ralphie's fight is just an example of boys pounding boys, remember, Ralphie butchers that kid for like 2 full minutes, giving no indication of relenting despite Scott's weird, like, protesting and pig squeals. Had Ralphie's mother not intervened, he would have beat Scott's anachronistic braces through the top of his ginger head.
Tiny red-hot little flame began to grow.
What's more, literally all Ralphie wants for Christmas is a dangerous weapon. Not for shooting cans or defending the bird feeder from aggressive squirrels, but for the express purpose of killing people. When Ralphie dreams of a life as the proud owner of a Red Ryder BB gun, his imagination immediately conjures forth a home invasion scenario where his sharpshooting skills result in the untimely deaths of 4 adult men. Is that normal? Do most kids daydream about all the human lives they could extinguish with their Christmas present? Is there some 9-year-old child out there right now plotting to smash a Barbie dream house over a jaywalker's head until they stop moving? Ralphie may have suppressed these violent urges as he grew older, but eventually they manifested as Tyler Durden and forced their way onto the face of an Oscar-winning clown. Honka honka! We know know the narrator imagines an entirely different identity for himself, but that vivid imagination was already present in Ralphie as a kid. Ralphie's daydreams range from getting an A+ on an essay to, again, having the legal excuse to kill somebody. Both characters have these rich, detailed inner lives, which, when coupled with their love of violence, could easily result in the creation of Tyler Durden, and then Fight Club, and then Project Mayhem. It's like my grandma always said, daydreaming always starts with imagining getting a good grade in school, but it always ends with real-life domestic terrorism and shoot yourself in the face to get rid of your imaginary friends. And I think she was right. The narrator starts Fight Club in an effort to scrounge up some purpose after a life spent perusing IKEA catalogs, and Project Mayhem is a nihilistic attempt to obliterate consumer culture entirely. But really, he was disillusioned with capitalism much earlier. When Ralphie so desperately wants to learn little orphan Annie's secret message, he drinks an ungodly amount of Ovaltine to qualify for the necessary decoder ring. But what does the message actually say? Be sure to drink your Ovaltine.
A crummy commercial? Son of a...
At 9 years old, Ralphie was already realizing giant corporations will do anything to keep you buying, and ultimately, the satisfaction they offer is fleeting.
It's a dildo.
Later, Ralphie rests his hopes and dreams on getting a hold of that dope BB gun, but since everybody refuses to get it for him, because he'll shoot his off, Ralphie goes directly to the king of consumerism himself, Howard Schultz. Santa.
Ho, ho, ho.
But Santa also thinks Ralphie would shoot himself, so Santa also denies his request. To be fair, he was not wrong. In that moment, Ralphie learned that consumerism doesn't just tell us what to buy, but what we are allowed to buy, and ultimately, who we are allowed to be. Advertisements manipulate us to become the kind of docile people who can't stop purchasing pre-approved consumer products like chocolate milk and Ottomans and refreshing strawberry lemonades from
Starbucks.
He didn't understand it when he was 9, but his parents, teachers, and Santa were already laying the foundations for Ralphie's eventual savage break from consumer culture via explosives and underground fisticuffs. Adulting. Am I right?
I'm a 30-year-old boy.
Throughout A Christmas Story, Ralphie is constantly emasculated by female authority figures, beginning with the claim that he's not man enough to wield the incredible power of a Red Ryder Carbine Action 200-shot range model air rifle. And to make matters worse, what Ralphie's mom does get him for Christmas is the most humiliating bunny suit ever crafted by man.
You happy wearing that?
Or demons. See, Ralphie's dad encouraged violence and bought him guns, but Ralphie's mom is the one that stopped his fight with Scott by physically restraining him in the most humiliating fashion possible. Ralphie later identifies with strong male figures like Tyler Durden as part of his disgust being a member of a generation of men raised by women. All because his mom wouldn't buy him a gun or allow him to beat a kid to death? That's much.
Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh!
The narrator, for his part, seems thoroughly unable to connect with Marla and sees her as a threat. She forces him out of most of his support groups, including notably one for testicular cancer, and when they do hook up, he's not even aware it's happening. If ever there was a way to be emotionally uninvolved with a woman, it's to pretend that it's not even you doing the nasty, but your imaginary friend, who also totally looks like a late 90s Brad Pitt.
You want to finish her off?
No.
The seed planted in Ralphie when he was a kid finally blossoms into full-blown misogyny by the time he's an adult automobile recall specialist.
I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need.
Speaking of Ralphie's weird dad and strange relationships with women, a large part of Ralphie's story revolves around his erotic fascination with the leg lamp and its soft glow of electric sex gleaming in the window.
Yeah, statue.
Ralphie?
Never in the film is Ralphie interested in any actual girls or women. They're either emasculating authoritarians or sex lamps.
It's indescribably beautiful.
Indeed, Ralphie's budding sexuality is further complicated by the rough relationship between his father and mother. His mother's destruction of his father's literal idol to sex becomes yet another metaphor for female-driven emasculation.
Did you touch that? You were always jealous.
Put all of this together, and there can be no doubt that this violent, sexually confused, oft-emasculated kid one day starts a hyper-violent fight club alongside his imaginary hyper-masculine friend who co-bangs chicks he refuses to care about.
You want to slip?
No, you don't.
But all of this is pointless if the two characters are too far apart in age. I mean, after all, if Ralphie's 9 years old in 1940, that'd put him close to 68 years old around the time of Fight Club.
Like so many others, I had become a slave to the IKEA nesting instinct.
There are two easy ways around this problem. Firstly, Ralphie probably just straight lies about his age. As I already mentioned, his story includes things that didn't exist until the 1980s. Ralphie is probably an adult in 1983, given the man voice that he's narrating with.
Only I didn't say fudge.
But even if we just push it up 20 years and say he was born in 1960, that'd make him only in his late 30s by the time of Fight Club. Even if you think the narrator still doesn't look quite that old, what the hell does he look like? For all we know, he could be a spry 68-year-old who imagines himself as a 30-something.
My tit's gonna rot off.
And that might be pushing it, but it's tough to accept any aspects of the narrator's retelling as completely visually factual. After all, this is a movie full of subtle visual sleight of hand tricks, like randomly inserted single frames of pornography and constant background Starbucks cups, which is a great idea because yum.
I couldn't sleep.
Yeah, all right. I betrayed my knowledge of 30 Seconds to Mars back catalog, threw everyone off the scent of my leg lamp fetish, and undeniably proved that the narrator and Ralphie are the same person beyond a shadow of a doubt, so help me God, that is it! Anyway, be sure to check with Kathy, a woman, on your way out for some drugs for your testicular cancer. Guys, I want to be honest with you because I pride myself on my honesty and my transparency. I haven't been honest with you. I am not a real owner of a placard. These are Scrabble tiles. I'm sorry if I led anyone astray or if I insinuated that this was a real placard, but it's not. I don't own one. I may never own one. But if you can find it in your heart to forgive me, I promise to do better. If you like and subscribe, maybe I'll get a real placard. Like a real doctor. I'm so sorry.